Hello friends, welcome to a new series that I'm going to be doing in which I review some of the supplements that I think are the most worthy of purchase. Of course, overall, I don't think that supplements are as useful for our health as compared to food or medicines actually. And in general, I think that they're mostly not worth the money. However, if somebody is going to spend money on supplements, I'm going to do a series here over time. Maybe once a week I'll release a video on a certain supplement that I think is worth taking for certain people. So today we'll begin with a supplement that I have right here, which I use myself. It's called Citricol-S. It is a branded form of citrus bergamot. So citrus bergamot is a kind of citrus fruit that's grown in the Mediterranean. It's been there for several centuries. It's a blend of a couple of species of citrus, and it has some very interesting phytochemicals, including flavonols, that cause certain responses in our body which we don't fully understand yet. Actually, let me be completely clear with you. I've read all the studies on citrus bergamot, and it's really conjecture which phytochemicals are the ones responsible for the health promoting benefits, and they do not know how those phytochemicals biochemically promote health. All they know is that it seems to be like 2 or 3 particular phytochemicals may have an impact, and they don't know what those phytochemicals do to gene expression or to other things in the body. But what we know about for sure is that citrus bergamot, when taken at a dose between half a gram and 1.5 grams a day, what happens is it basically is the only supplement that can address all the symptoms of metabolic syndrome in one time. Now, as you guys will remember, if you follow me on Instagram, metabolic syndrome used to be called Syndrome X, was identified originally by a man named Reven, who has now passed away at a very old age, by the way, which I'm always happy when I find someone that passed away in their mid-90s or later, or significantly into their 90s. Anyway, Reven identified a syndrome in which people have 5 pathological symptoms, and these 5 symptoms tend to go together. And when you have these 5 symptoms, you tend to progress very quickly into disease states, usually either cardiovascular disease or diabetes, but also cancer. So this supplement addresses most or all of the metabolic syndrome factors, because it lowers blood glucose levels in studies. It's shown to lower blood glucose levels in people with metabolic syndrome by up to 20%, actually over 20% slightly. It also lowers LDL cholesterol levels by over 20% at the same time, and lowers triglycerides by over 40%. It's also effective when combined with a statin. For example, if a statin will lower LDL cholesterol by 30%, when combined with citrus bergamot at a dose of 1 gram a day, it will reduce it by 38%. So it has a significant effect on, and by the way, just for those that don't know as much about LDL cholesterol and lipidology. So basically, atherosclerosis is developed in the body when LDL particles, which are low density lipoprotein particles, are traveling in the blood for extended periods of time, and they get oxidized, which means they react with reactive oxygen species, and they get oxidized and they lodge themselves into the arterial walls. So what happens is that we want to limit the number of particles of LDL that we have in our body to limit the likelihood that these particles become oxidized in the cardiovascular system. So one simple way that we do this is by looking at LDL cholesterol. That's the metric I was talking about earlier, that this supplement has been shown to reduce in metabolic syndrome patients by 20%. LDL cholesterol is actually not the best marker for what we're trying to study. What we're trying to study really is the particle number, but it usually costs a little bit more to test the particle number, and most of the studies use the LDL cholesterol. Now, why we would want the particle number is because it's not the actual cholesterol in the LDL particles that is relevant, and Not all LDL particles have the same amount of cholesterol. Some have a lot of cholesterol and some have very little cholesterol. So you could potentially be a person, especially if you have a medium level of cholesterol or low cholesterol, you could be someone that has a few LDL particles that have a lot of cholesterol in them. So your LDL cholesterol may look a little bit higher than your LDL particle count. Or you could be somebody that has the opposite situation, which is more dangerous, in which you have lower LDL cholesterol, but tons of LDL particles, and much more likelihood of getting those LDL particles lodged in your arteries or your cardiovascular structure, in which case you'll develop plaque quickly. So we always want to keep our LDL particle number lower, and this supplement does that. It also lowers triglycerides, which is the fat in your blood. And it lowers the blood glucose levels, which is helpful for people that have insulin resistance. Now, another thing that it does also is it seems to improve endothelial function, which is the function of the vascular structure. So in people who have endothelial stiffness, which is one of the major causes for high blood pressure, it seems to reduce the stiffness by up to 50% in the limited studies that exist on it. Now, the reason why I showed you guys this specific supplement, and something I was talking about before with regard to bodybuilding coaches, is that they often tell people take citrus bergamot, but they don't tell them which one to take. Which I find surprising, because the only study using any brand used exactly this brand, Citrus Coles. So if you're going to use one brand, you should use the brand that has been studied, because you don't know the quality of the other brands. So just so you guys know, there are no consumer review companies that have reviewed, to my knowledge, citrus bergamot supplements. Usually I rely on consumer review companies to know about the quantity of active ingredient in recent productions of a supplement, as well as potential toxins or impurities in that supplement. And I don't know of any that have reviewed citrus bergamot supplements. So for that reason, it's particularly helpful to go with a company that you actually know has been studied. Although, despite it being studied, it's studied a while ago. So the supplement could have deteriorated in quality, since the supplement company could have deteriorated in their quality of production since then. Anyway, guys, I hope that you learned something from this video. Citrus bergamot is, overall, I would say it's one of the top 2 or 3 medications supplements for cardiovascular health. The other 2 would be red yeast rice, which is very difficult to find good quality supplements of, and also red yeast rice is just an inferior statin. Really, it has the exact same mechanism as the statin, whereas this may not. This almost definitely does not. I mean, it does increase LDL receptor activity, and it seems to do that in response to lower cholesterol production. But I think it does much more than that, and it does it in different ways. So anyway, the third one that is helpful, of course, is omega-3 fish oils, which are EPA and DHA, which seem to work by a different mechanism. They seem to disrupt carbohydrate metabolism in some way, which seems to lower triglycerides in particular, but the jury's still out on that. They definitely have a lot of helpful... Actually, I'll do a video on fish oils as well, because there's some controversy there also. But I hope you guys benefit from this, and check out Citrus Coles. I'll put a picture here where the name is clearly visible so you guys can purchase it. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.